No one in the frontier town would give the young Apache woman a chance. Doors closed, jobs disappeared, and every hopeful step ended in disappointment. Just when she believed she had nowhere left to turn, one struggling rancher made a choice that everyone else called a mistake. But within weeks, the same people who doubted her were left speechless by what unfolded on that quiet little ranch. Stay with us, because this unforgettable story proves that one act of kindness can change more than a single life. The morning sun rose gently over the frontier, casting a warm golden light across the dusty road leading into the small town of Willow Creek. Wagons rolled slowly through the main street, merchants arranged fresh produce outside their shops, and ranchers greeted one another before beginning another busy day. Among the travelers walking toward town was a young Apache woman named Naya. She carried a small cloth bag over her shoulder, containing little more than a change of clothes, a family photograph carefully wrapped in fabric, and a small pouch of beads her grandmother had given her years before. For 3 days she had traveled alone, stopping only to rest beside streams and beneath large trees. Her food was nearly gone, but she refused to lose hope. She walked to the general store and waited patiently until the owner finished helping a customer. "Good morning," she said politely. "Do you need someone to help clean, cook, or organize supplies?" "I am willing to work." The shopkeeper looked at her for only a moment before shaking his head. "I have no work today." Naya thanked him with a gentle smile and quietly stepped outside. She continued from one place to another. At the bakery she offered to wash dishes. At the boarding house she offered to clean rooms. At a nearby ranch she asked if anyone needed help caring for horses. Each answer was the same: "No, thank you." As the afternoon passed, her footsteps became slower. She never complained or argued. She simply accepted each answer and kept searching. By sunset, the busy streets had grown quiet. Naya walked beyond the edge of town and sat beneath a large oak tree overlooking the open prairie. She looked toward the distant hills and whispered to herself, "Maybe tomorrow." Just then, the sound of horse hooves echoed along the road. A small wagon approached, pulled by an old chestnut horse. Driving it was Thomas Reed, a rancher known more for his honesty than his wealth. His clothes were clean but worn, and the wagon carried only a few empty baskets after a long day selling vegetables at the market. As he passed the tree, he noticed the young woman sitting alone. Instead of continuing home, he gently pulled the reins and stopped. "Evening," he called kindly. "Have you been sitting here long?" Naya looked up, surprised that someone had spoken to her. "A little while." Thomas climbed down from the wagon and noticed the tired expression on her face. "Have you had supper?" She hesitated before quietly answering, "Not today." Without another word, Thomas reached into his basket and handed her the simple meal he had packed for his ride home. "It is not much," he said with a warm smile, "but no one should end the day hungry." For the first time since arriving in Willow Creek, Naya felt that someone had truly seen her, not as a stranger, but as a person. The next morning, Thomas arrived at the oak tree just after sunrise. He had spent the evening thinking about the young woman he had met the day before. Something about her quiet determination stayed with him. To his relief, Naya was still there, watching the morning light spread across the prairie. "I hope I am not too early," Thomas said with a smile. "You are not," she replied. He handed her a small basket with fresh bread, apples, and a jar of homemade jam. "I thought we could have breakfast before talking." As they ate, Thomas learned more about her journey. Naya explained that she had traveled from one settlement to another searching for honest work. She knew how to sew, cook, care for gardens, and look after horses. Everywhere she went, people turned her away before giving her a chance. Thomas listened carefully. "My ranch is not much," he admitted. "It is small, and there is always more work than I can finish alone." Naya looked at him with curiosity. "I cannot promise high wages," he continued, "but I can promise fair treatment, a warm meal, and a place where your work will be appreciated." For a moment, Naya was speechless. "No one has spoken to me like that since I left home," she said quietly. Thomas smiled. "Then perhaps it is time someone did." They rode together to his ranch, a modest piece of land surrounded by open fields and a weathered wooden fence. The house was simple, and the barn showed its age, but everything was neat and well cared for. "It is not perfect," Thomas said as they stepped down from the wagon. Naya looked around at the peaceful surroundings and smiled. It feels like a place where hope can grow. Thomas could not explain why, but for the first time in years, the quiet ranch no longer felt empty. As they walked toward the house, neither of them noticed two townspeople watching from the road, quietly wondering why the poor rancher had welcomed the one person everyone else had ignored. The days that followed were filled with honest work from sunrise until evening. Thomas showed Naya around the ranch, explaining which fences needed repair, where the vegetable garden was planted, and how each horse had its own personality. Naya listened carefully and quickly became part of the daily routine. She mended worn work shirts that Thomas had planned to replace, organized the small storage shed, and planted fresh herbs beside the kitchen window. Even the horses seemed calmer when she spoke to them in her gentle voice. One evening, after finishing their work, Thomas noticed something different about the ranch. "It feels brighter somehow," he said. Naya smiled as she watered the small garden. Sometimes a place only needs a little care to remind people how special it already is. The next market day, Thomas loaded baskets of fresh vegetables onto his wagon. Before leaving, Naya handed him several neatly sewn cloth bags she had made from old pieces of fabric. "Perhaps someone can use these," she said. Thomas placed them on the wagon without expecting much. To his surprise, customers admired the handmade bags almost as much as the vegetables. By midday, every bag had been sold, and several people asked if more would be available the following week. When Thomas returned to the ranch with a smile on his face, he held up the empty basket. "They loved your work," he said. Naya laughed softly, happy that her skills had helped. Word soon spread through Willow Creek that the struggling ranch was beginning to prosper. People who had once ignored Naya started speaking about her talent and kindness instead of treating her as a stranger. As the sun set behind the hills, Thomas looked across the peaceful ranch and realized that welcoming one person had already changed far more than he had ever imagined. Weeks turned into months, and the little ranch continued to thrive. The garden produced more vegetables than ever before, the horses looked healthier, and neighbors began stopping by more often. Some came to buy fresh produce, while others came simply to enjoy a friendly conversation. Naya became known throughout Willow Creek for her kindness and her skill with sewing. Families brought her worn blankets and work clothes, trusting her careful hands to give them new life. She accepted every task with gratitude and always greeted people with a warm smile. One evening, Thomas and Naya sat on the front porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and gold. "I used to think this ranch would always be a lonely place," Thomas admitted. "Now it feels like home." Naya looked across the fields and smiled. "When I first arrived in town, I thought no one would ever give me a chance. You changed that with one simple act of kindness." Thomas shook his head gently. "You changed this ranch just as much as I did." For a quiet moment, neither of them spoke. They did not need to. The peaceful silence said more than words ever could. As the evening breeze moved through the fields, Thomas realized his feelings had grown far beyond friendship. He did not know what the future would bring, but one thing was certain. The greatest blessing of his life had arrived on the day he decided to stop and help a stranger. As autumn settled across the valley, the ranch was full of life. The harvest had been generous, the barn was busy once again, and laughter often echoed through the yard. Neighbors who had once passed by without a glance now visited regularly, bringing fresh pies, homemade bread, and stories to share around the table. One peaceful morning, Thomas asked Naya to walk with him to the top of a small hill overlooking the ranch. From there they could see the fields glowing beneath the first light of the rising sun. Thomas took a deep breath. "The day I met you beneath that oak tree, I thought I was simply helping someone in need," he said. "I never imagined you would become the greatest blessing this ranch has ever known." Naya smiled, her eyes shining with quiet happiness. "You gave me more than a place to work," she replied. "You gave me a place where I belonged." Thomas gently reached for her hand. "I would be honored if we built the rest of our lives together." With tears of joy in her eyes, Naya nodded. "I would like that very much." A few weeks later, friends and neighbors gathered at the ranch for a simple wedding celebration. There were wildflowers on every table, music played by local musicians, and homemade food shared with everyone who came. The day was filled with smiles, warm embraces, and heartfelt wishes for the couple. As the sun began to set, Thomas looked around at the people celebrating together. He realized that one small act of kindness had done more than change 2 lives. It had brought an entire community closer together. And from that day forward, the little ranch became a place where every traveler was welcomed with respect, hope, and an open heart. Thank you for spending this time with us and becoming part of this heartfelt journey. This story reminds us that true kindness is never wasted. One person chose compassion when everyone else walked away, and that single decision changed 2 lives and brought hope to an entire community. Sometimes the greatest blessings come when we open our hearts, offer a helping hand, and believe in the goodness of others. If you enjoyed this story, please support the channel by liking this video and subscribing for more original Western frontier stories filled with hope, courage, unforgettable characters, and inspiring moments. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a new adventure. We would also love to hear from you. Tell us in the comments. Have you ever given someone a second chance, or has someone given one to you? If this story touched your heart, share it with your friends and family so its message of kindness and hope can reach even more people. Thank you for watching. Take care, and we look forward to seeing you in our next Western Frontier story.